Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 7 roles and positions that you can hold while you're at the United States Air Force basic military training. But before we get into the video, let's cover the basics. My name is Michael A. Inman, and I'm an airman in the United States Air Force. I upload a video to this channel every Monday, so if you like military and/or Air Force content, definitely hit the subscribe button and make sure you turn the notification bell to on so you know when I upload a brand new video. But without further ado, let's get into the topic. As you might expect, there are a wide variety of roles and responsibilities that you may be assigned during your time at basic military training. So this video is to give you the top 7 most visible roles that you can be assigned during your time at BMT, so you can either pursue them if you're the leadership type, or totally avoid them if you're trying to lay low during your time at basic military training. And it's not hard to guess what the first role we're going to discuss is, and that's the most visible role that you can have during your time at BMT, and that is Dorm Chief. As you might expect, the Dorm Chief is the primary individual and fellow trainee who is ensuring that the flight collectively makes it to the finish line. Now, of course, some things are going to be out of your control if you are the one chosen to be Dorm Chief, but it is still going to be your job to ensure that the people who are struggling with certain things, whether that be rolling socks or getting their locker or drawers in order, and or they are just insubordinate naturally. Regardless of the issue that some of your fellow trainees are having, it will be your responsibilities to lean in and just help them get to wherever they need to so that they do graduate. Additionally, a responsibility of the Dorm Chief is leading the primary leadership team well. You need to lead them well. And so the primary leadership team will of course be talking about throughout this video, but just know it's about 5 individuals, and the Dorm Chief is the alpha. She or he is the one who is just trying to keep the ship above water. Oh, and also, it is their role to motivate the flight. Now, of course, there will be a variety of people who play that motivation part, just because motivation comes naturally to some people. But definitely the Dorm Chief is responsible for motivating the flight to be the best version of themselves so that they all can not only make it to graduation, but hopefully the flight does very well in some of the competitive fields when we are competing against other flights. Of course, the pro of being the Dorm Chief of your flight will be that you have a lot of interface with the MTI. Now, if you are someone who does not like speaking to authority, then this is a con. But for someone who likes to, do the very best and of course speak to people who have more experience in the, military, which you are of course joining, it's really unique having that kind of relationship with your MTIs, because of course they are clearly above you in every way, but they of course lean in. And so if you're having any leadership issues, if you're having any questions about your leadership and or how to deal with certain things in the flight, it's really great to have a form of mentorship relationship with your MTIs because you're the Dorm Chief. And of course, you're having regular meetings with the MTIs just so that they can check in on what's going on with the flight behind the scenes. Another pro is simply the leadership experience that you are gaining during the, 6 to 8 week experience. Also, you're able to leave the experience of BMT a better leader and a better communicator. And lastly, of course, is being Dorm Chief, and really being any of the roles we're discussing in this video. It does gain you points toward graduating with honors. So I hope you like those. I hope I sold it well, because I really do encourage you to pursue being Dorm Chief. One thing to note is that if you are an older trainee, let's say close to 30 or exceeding 30, it's an unofficial rule that your MTI is going to look at you and say, well, you're a Dorm Chief. The first con of being Dorm Chief is actually that you are responsible for other people's mistakes sometimes. That is the way it is. Meaning, if Joe Schmo or Mary Mo is not able to get their life together and they keep making the same mistake repeatedly for, let's say, 2 weeks straight, and then maybe it starts to trickle out and other people start making mistakes and everyone's starting to get slower and slower, At the end of the day, you are where the trainee buck stops before jumping levels and getting to the MTIs. But you are where the trainee buck stops. So if your whole flight is kind of a mess, at the end of the day, that falls on you because you are not helping them nor getting them the help that they need to be able to meet minimum standards. The next con is that you need to be faster than everyone. It is just the way it is. It is very difficult to lead from the back. And so when you are dorm chief, if you do maintain the role, you will feel pressure to be the fastest person, or at least the top 5 fastest people in your flight. Because how are you going to be able to yell at your flight and say, get on the wall? And by that, I mean just get on the wall inside your dormitory. It's time to do roll call and exit the dormitory. How are you going to do that? How are you going to say, guys, we need to be quicker when you don't even have your socks or shoes on yet? How's that? That's not going to motivate people to be faster. They're just going to look at you and say, you ain't even ready. So you will feel pressure to be fast, and that is normal. You just have to deal with it, and or you won't be fast. You won't even be the top half of people who are on the wall first, and it will cause a problem and you might be fired. The next role that is highly visible and is part of the top 7 BMT jobs and or roles, they are called element leaders. And I just stated something about a leadership team, right? There's the dorm chief, and then there are 4 other individuals that create the leadership team that collectively help push the flight to be their best selves. The other 4 individuals are called element leaders. Now, it's something worth mentioning that the element leaders at the beginning of BMT most likely will not be the same element leaders at the end of BMT. And that's because, very similar to the dorm chief situation, sometimes they're fired, sometimes they're not meeting the expectations of the MTI, and sometimes the flight as a whole is not meeting the expectations of the MTI. And if the whole flight's a mess, clearly the leaders all need to go. The element leaders each of them lead an element in the flight. And so when you are marching as a flight, there are 4 columns. Each column is led by an element leader. In the day-to-day experience of BMT, the element leaders are responsible for not only assisting the dorm chief, but of course assisting all of their fellow trainees, but specifically the, let's say, 10 to 12 people in their column or element. And that brings us to another responsibility of the element leaders. They are responsible for doing what I would call a soft inspection prior to the MTI inspection. So before the end of the day, for example, I would do a walkthrough of my column to make sure everyone had their lockers in order prior to us going to bed. And so that kind of helps you see the framework of how the dorm chief makes sure that the element leaders are doing their job successfully and is the primary communicator with the MTI. And then the element leaders help make sure that everyone in their column or their element is sorted. Make sure they have no questions, make sure they're good. If they have any interpersonal issues bubbling with other trainees, sometimes you have to try to be the best version of a therapist or like a mediator you can be, but we are not trained that well in those areas. The pro is that you do feel a little bit of, coolness just being a part of the leadership team. And of course, consistently across all these roles, it does help you become an honor graduate because you do get points towards the final calculation when you work all 7 of these different roles and responsibilities. The cons of being an element leader is that you do kind of sort of need to be able to march well, because since you're leading a column or an element, you're in the front. And so if you aren't marching that well, it will be quite obvious. One quick note. It is important to note that when you are a part of this leadership team, you will sometimes be detested a bit because you are responsible for whether it be laying down the law, not really, but sometimes it seems that way, or you will be responsible for making it very clear that some of your peers are not adhering to the standards provided. And at the end of the day, you are not technically above them. Yes, you have a voluntary role that you are acting in, and of course it comes with guiding your peers, but you are not technically above them. So thus, you're in this spot of trying to correct people, and they're like, you ain't my boss. And so that's just a part of the experience of being dorm chief or element leader. You will have some pushback from some of your peers because they just won't like that you're trying to talk to them some type of way. And they know very well that you are not an MTI. So they will put you back in your place. Like, you can sit back down, sir. Next, we have beast monitors. Now, beast monitors are very similar to the leadership team in your flight that you've already grown accustomed to, but this leadership team, also of 5, is made up of 5 other individuals that your MTIs have been watching throughout your time during basic military training and have said, we see clear leadership experience, leadership potential in all 5 of these individuals. So we're going to let them be the leadership team when your flight goes to Beast. Basic Expeditionary Airman Skills Training. So you pretty much are doing a mock deployment. So when your flight goes to the week-long experience of Beast, there will be 5 individuals who, like I said, had leadership potential, chosen to be the Beast Chief, aka Dorm Chief, and then the other Beast Monitors or Element Leaders. And so it's a less extensive leadership experience or role that you can have during basic military training, because instead of like 7 weeks of being in the spotlight and feeling the pressure of your peers saying, shut up, it's more 1 week. And so that does come with pros and cons, but we'll get to that in a sec. In general, the other responsibilities of Beast monitors are to make sure that you understand the protocols and expectations of you and your flight at Beast, which of course are different than regular life in basic military training because you're on a mock deployment. And also, they are there to pretty much prevent people from, ripping each other apart, because during Beast, many of you, I was included, will be quite frustrated with the overall experience. Whether it be cold outside or hot outside or just sleeping in a cot a little bit much. I'm sorry. Regardless, some people will be frustrated. So the Beast monitors, once again, similar to the other leadership team, will need to put on their mediator or therapist hat, not qualified. We're all not qualified for those hats. And will have to lower tensions. The pro, if I'm being transparent with you all, is that some people, if they are unable to be dorm chief or element leaders, will feel that their opportunity for leadership within the BMT experience was stolen. And so with that very human experience or human feeling, Beast does provide an awesome opportunity that if you're doing well during basic military training, you can slightly try to ask or lobby your MTI for hopefully providing you an opportunity to lead or at least try out your leadership experience at Beast. Because not only will they see you've been doing well at BMT and helping out your peers and being supportive and motivating to all of your peers during BMT, but also if you communicate your interest in being a Beast monitor, it usually will, of course, end up with you getting one of those roles and you getting to show them what you got and also show yourself what you got. Because, hey, leadership is hard, and sometimes we need the experience to let us know if we can do it or not. But now let's discuss some cons. The first con is, as we've said, we're trying to be upfront in this video. One of the things about being a Beast monitor and dealing with us being humans is that people don't love change. And people also don't love when their peers tell them what to do. So if you mix the two together and you have a situation in which there's a new group of leaders who have not been the leaders the last 5 or 6 weeks, and out of nowhere, they are telling you people what to do and they are giving corrections, and we're in a stressful environment, And on top of that, you're dealing with people who are like, not everyone, but there's people who like didn't like when the other leadership team was telling them what to do. But now we have these other people who out of nowhere, we didn't even warm up to them. They just are telling us what to do in this rough environment. As you could expect, sometimes when you're a beast monitor, you have an experience that unfortunately is plagued with a lot of pushback, a lot of, no, I don't want to. You can take that advice or take that command elsewhere. A lot. Now, I'm sure it's similar to what the other leadership team went through, but the other leadership team had like a good 2 weeks to like get used to it. And also the flight had a good week and a half to 2 weeks to get used to them leading. The beast monitors literally have 1 week to be in these roles, and immediately by the first day, we are all in a place that's very different than what we know, and we need to follow instructions. So immediately they need to be leading effectively, and there's no transition time. So people literally are like, you trying it, you need to get out of my face. So being beast monitor can be very difficult. And I'm just speaking from what our beast monitors told us as, the element leader or dorm chief. And I'm so sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. But it is interesting when the people that you kind of got a vibe from them since the beginning of, I should be in your spot, I should have that role. And now when they have a leadership role, all you hear from them is like, this is much harder than I thought. No one's listening to me. Everyone's rolling their eyes and talking back. And now the leadership team, aka the dorm chief and element leaders who had been leading, but low-key Beast Week is our week off. We ain't leading nobody. We are just following directions. We're like, just tell us what to do. We're low-key sitting back like, it ain't that easy, is it? You like what you got? Sometimes you get what you ask for. Now you ain't gonna be rolling your eyes at me no more. So if you are part of the former leadership team, then you're gonna enjoy Beast Week. But if you're a beast monitor, yes, it is a time to prove yourself, but this is me bracing you that it's gonna be a little rough. Good luck. And now that we've talked about those three, the dorm chief, the element leaders, and the beast monitors, now let's finish out this list with the last four, which are individual roles, of course, but they are still very, very visible. The first of those is the PT monitor. Now, the responsibilities of a PT monitor are primarily to provide additional motivation during PT. So if people are getting tired, you have a peer, whether it be a male or female, whoever they are from your flight, who not only is scoring very well in their own personal PT, but also they have a natural ability to motivate their peers to do one more push-up, one more lap, go one more. Shout out to a fellow YouTuber. With that being said, the PT monitor is doing just that during PT. And additionally, they often will lean in for people who are physically, not necessarily blessed. Because y'all know I could barely do a sit-up. I told y'all. But for people who need a little bit more attention and who are really struggling to hit those minimum standards, the PT monitor often will volunteer their own time, whether it be on Saturdays or Sundays, to just do additional workouts with their peers, and usually in the dormitory, to just get them closer to that minimum standard so that no one has to deal with the stress of will I or will I not pass the final PT test. Now, pros include points toward final graduation, honor grad, and of course, getting to feel that rush of helping your peers and that gratitude back toward you. Cons, well, some people just will not like, okay, I don't know why I'm being so honest with you all, but I don't think I like when people are like, come on, Michael, go one more. I just find it so annoying. But that is just me. I'm aware that I'm in the minority. PT monitors are, on the whole, very appreciated. Next, we have the EC monitor. Now, the EC monitor is the person who schedules the almost 24-hour watch of the door into our dormitory. Now, during like PT or other things, like let's say we're getting vaccinations, moments in which the entire flight is leaving the dormitory, we will not have ECs or entry control personnel doing their job, aka trainees guarding the door. We will not have people guarding the door when everyone needs to be somewhere. But let's say Saturdays and Sundays are incredible examples, and or when people are in the dormitory, there are people guarding the door. So usually if one person or two people are on profiles or just need to stay in the dormitory, if anyone is staying in the dormitory, those people will either be entry control or there will be entry control left with them. So any time that we're in the dormitory, of course, there are people guarding the doors, and they are called entry control. So when we're sleeping, when we're waking up, when we're showering, when we're doing chores, throughout the day and during the hours of night, excluding those times where we all had to be somewhere during the day, throughout all of those times, there usually will be EC or EC duty, in which entry control duty means you are assigned to be entry control. Now, the entry control monitor or EC monitor is the person who schedules all of these 2-hour shifts. So whether that be from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., 12 to 2 a.m., or a normal shift, let's say it's in the PM and people are slowly but surely returning back from dinner. Well, the first two people back usually need to be the people who will be entry control. Or when all the flight leaves for dinner, two people need to stay because people will be trickling back from dinner at different times depending on when they finish food, right? So with that, the entry control monitor schedules all of those shifts. And like I said, for dinner, that may be, let's say, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And so that is their role. It's pretty simple to understand. Pros is that you, of course, because you're the EC monitor, you do get to manage when you do EC. And sometimes you just don't do EC, but I think that's illegal. But regardless, if you know you don't want to do in the mornings, you can manage that. Now, in my opinion, it's a little unethical, and it should be pretty fair how often anyone works the late night first shift. Is that what it's called? Anywhere between, night time and wake up time, it can suck. But the real sucky hours are like midnight to 4. It is terrible. So you, of course, can make the choice, ethical or not, to never do terrible shifts if you're the entry control monitor. That is a pro. The con is that a lot of people will be pissed at you if they feel targeted, and if you are an highly unethical person, if you're putting the people you don't like during the shifts from 12 to 4, so like 12 to 2 or the 2 to 4 shift in the morning, that's unethical, and people will not only be pissed at you, but will also report the heck out of you. So you have to be very careful to make sure you're doing it in a very equitable way so that it does not even seem like you are picking favorites, giving your friends the easy shifts, giving your acquaintances the sucky shifts. Because that's what can happen, and you don't want that to be on your back. Because then you get in trouble and it just becomes a mess. Next, we have academic monitor. The academic monitor is responsible for really understanding the BMT study guide, and when there are moments of pause, such as 10 minutes waiting outside of a building prior to our flight being able to go into the building for vaccinations. Easy example. During those 10 minutes, the academic monitor will call us all to focus on him or her, and will literally just ask us questions from the different chapters and lessons that we've learned thus far during BMT. Because if you remember, during BMT, you are going to a classroom some of the time, almost every day, learning different things, whether if it has to do with your weapons, doing, CPR, anything of that nature, you are actually taking notes and going to class. And so the academic monitor's job is to not only keep all of this information top of mind, especially when we have free time, but also to assist people study it. So usually in the dormitories, the academic monitor will create a study hall hour and or a study session hour where he or she will go into the day room and say, okay, everyone, if you want to make sure you are doing okay with chapter 29, this Sunday, meet us in there and we're going to do chapter 27, 28, and 29, everything we learned this week. And literally, I'm just going to make up questions and you guys are going to answer the questions, and thus we will be ready for the end of course exam. And last but not least, it's not quite a job, but it is a very visible role that I think some of you all would be interested in. And that is the Guidon Bearer. And when I say guide on, so guide, like a guide to a book, well, a guide to a computer, like a manual guide, guide dash on, O-N, and then bearer, or someone who is bearing something, AKA, I am bearing this gift for you. So Guidon Bearer. Now the Guidon Bearer role is the person who holds the flag, more specifically, marches with the flag in front of your flight going anywhere. And so with that comes the responsibility of marching with the flag at the graduation ceremony ahead of your flight. So they are literally, at least in visual order, the first human after your MTI, the first human that all of your family will see because they are the Guidon Bearer of your flight. They hold the flag, they're in front of the flight marching. The dorm chief, who knew, is in the back of the flight when we march. So now that you understand that, it is a very visible role because you are always the first person people see in our flight. Additionally, you have some additional marching things that you have to learn because how you have to do different things, especially during ceremonies, and you are also marching slightly nuanced or differently than all of us because you are holding a flag and you need to know how to present the flag instead of present your arm. So the pros, of course, is it's a very visible role and there's some respect that comes from being the Guidon Bearer because you'll never be chosen to be the Guidon Bearer if you are not one of the best marchers in the flight. And so with that, it's worth adding that if any of you guys did junior ROTC, usually the MTI will ask that prior to the Guidon Bearer even being chosen, saying, okay, does anyone have experience? Perfect. Start holding the flag. You're our Guidon Bearer until you are fired. Clearly, there's a lot of firing in the military, specifically the BMT. So that is kind of a con. You can get fired quickly because if you're not marching up to par, they will find the best marcher in the flight and they will be the Guidon Bearer. That's just the way it goes. So in conclusion, those are the 7 top roles or jobs in BMT. I like to think of them as the most visible jobs in BMT. And if you're interested in that kind of an experience during your time in BMT, definitely seek them out. And if you don't want to be very visible and you want to lay low, avoid these 7 at all costs. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, definitely subscribe, like, and comment. And also, if you want to see more of my face, you can find me at @MichaelAinman_ on Instagram and Twitter. Have a great rest of your week, and specifically for this video, I will slightly change it. Have a merry and bright rest of your week, and I will see you guys next Monday.